in news out of New England, reportedly Cam Newton has been named the Week 1 starter against the Dolphins. And also it was announced publicly that he's a team captain. And just for some context here, I think the Week 1 starter, no real surprise. But to be a team captain as a new guy in New England is not something that's often the case. So clearly the marriage at the moment, very happy one between New England, Josh McDaniels, Coach Belichick, and Cam Newton.
Yeah, it's all good stuff so far. And I thought it was also interesting when Belichick earlier in the week praised Cam Newton in a way that he doesn't normally praise people. Talked about his work ethic, talked about his big and contagious personality, talked about how he is leading and the guys are following him, how he is a big influence, whether he's in a small group with 2 or 3 people or a big group with 30 or 40. And so this is one of the biggest storylines, I think, going into this season. Cam Newton was a possible future Hall of Fame quarterback, a former MVP who was basically told by his former team to go find a new job. And so far, so good, like I said, in New England. He seems to have the confidence of his coaches and his teammates, and that's a great place to start.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting and intriguing storylines, and we'll have it right out of the gate against the Dolphins. This was a bit surprising, Gary, out of D.C. The Washington football team announcing that they've released a 7-time Pro Bowler, Adrian Peterson, the former MVP. Now, look, he's getting up there in age. I think he'll be around 36 or 37 this season, and he's a guy who's been effective, though, and it's a running back room in Washington that, remember, Darius Geist was released after domestic violence charges. Now no Adrian Peterson. They are really turning their attention to the young guys. Was this a shock to you?
I didn't expect to be talking about this on today's episode of Time to Shine, but obviously the early morning development leads us here. I am a bit surprised, but by all accounts, my little homie from the University of Memphis, Antonio Gibson, has been terrific in Washington's camp. And it's interesting, he's a third-round pick. He's only carried the ball 33 times in his 2-year career at the University of Memphis. First, because he was playing behind Darrell Henderson, then behind All-American Kenneth Gainwell. But obviously the talent is there. That's how he became a third-round pick. He's been impressive in camp, and now he could be the guy that gets more carries than anybody else for the Washington NFL franchise, which is a great story for him and obviously also for my alma mater.
Oh, I love that you get that stuff. And also have Bryce Love out of Stanford, a big-time college player a couple years ago. Now he gets his shot. The Jaguars, Gary, continue to clean house of really what is talented players. They trade Ronnie Harrison to Cleveland Browns for a draft pick, and this makes him the 3rd starter in 5 days to be traded or cut from the Jaguars. And there's clearly a rebuild happening here, but it's jarring to see when you put this in context to what they've done over the last 2 years when it comes to their first-round picks. They had an extremely talented defensive roster. Now Yannick Ngakoue is gone. Ronnie Harrison is gone. We know Jalen Ramsey went away last year. I mean, I don't see how this plays out for Doug Marrone down there in Jacksonville.
They seemed very close a few years ago to maybe breaking through, and then it just never happened. And now they seem to be aiming toward the bottom. This seems more about let's get as best positioned as we can get to maybe select Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Seems more about that than anything else. I know Gardner Minshew is a likable quarterback, and the story is tremendous. But I don't think anybody believes he's the guy who takes you where, if you're running an NFL franchise, you're trying to go. Trevor Lawrence is somebody that most people believe is a franchise quarterback. And so I certainly understand if you've already decided you're not going to be good, why not try to go ahead and get as bad as you can get so that maybe you can draft a guy who can take you back to relevancy.
Yeah, and one note here, Ronnie Harrison, good pickup for the Browns. They lost Grant Delpit, their 2nd-round pick, at safety to an Achilles, so he comes in and shores up that spot. Deshaun Watson, Gary, seems to be next in line here for a monster deal. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network reporting that the Texans and Watson's representation are working hard and maybe getting closer to a monster extension as early as before that kickoff game next Thursday against the Chiefs. And it's been reported that not necessarily Mahomes money, where you're at that 45 per year, $500 million in total money range, but most likely ahead of where Russell Wilson sits, Aaron Rodgers kind of right behind Mahomes at that 35 million range. So if if you're in Deshaun Watson's shoes, and I think also adding Dak Prescott to the conversation, why do you go ahead and try and make this deal happen now?
Well, listen, the Mahomes deal is a giant, but
it's the outlier.
Yes, it is also that. And he's also not Patrick Mahomes, even though he has been in the Pro Bowl the past 2 seasons and led the Texans to the playoffs the past 2 seasons. I love Deshaun Watson. That Russell Wilson contract is probably about what he's aiming for. So 4 years, $140 million. To be overlooked by some franchises coming out of Clemson to then signing a 4-year, $140 million contract, that's a good trajectory. So whether the numbers are slightly up or slightly down from that, that's going to be the range. And I think if that is the case, if you're Deshaun, you're happy. And if you're Houston, you're thrilled because you've got your quarterback of the present and future locked up for a little while.
No doubt. I think it's a win for all sides, and hopefully Deshaun's able to pull that together here over the next few days.